everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm here today to do a kind of fun video for you, which was inspired by the podcast Marlon and Jake Read Dead People, which is a wonderful literary podcast if you haven't listened to it yet, with author Marlon James and his editor Jake, I'll put his last name here, and they discuss literature written by dead authors. And in one of the latest episodes that I listened to, they were talking about who would be at their literary dinner party, and then I had a memory of a tag that was going around BookTube about that last year, and Hannah had done that tag, so I decided to do my version of it. I'm kind of bad at doing tags. I don't really follow the rules necessarily of how they're supposed to work, but I did use Hannah's questions, some of the questions from the tag, and I will link the original in the description box down below. So here we go with my literary dinner parties. So the first question is, do you ask about what people are reading when you're at dinner parties? And I would say if I know that the people I'm eating with are readers, then I usually do ask them about what they're reading. So I would only kind of go there if I already had an indication that they were readers, because I think this may be the case for many of us. When we are really voracious readers, it is kind of awkward sometimes to discuss the extent to which you are reading books to people, because they don't necessarily share that same level of interest in books. So I kind of let the conversation flow depending on who I'm with. But as a rule, I generally won't discuss it with people unless I already know that they are a reader. Okay, so the second question is, which authors would you invite to a dinner party? So when I was considering this question, I decided to go with living authors. These are all living authors, and they're all modern day authors. And the reason for that is because I don't really want to mix and match authors from different time periods or eras, because I feel like that would make the conversation quite awkward. I think that what I'm interested in is having a really contemporary conversation about things that are going on today. And I think if I grabbed, Charles Dickens or someone like that and threw them at this table, it would be really hard for them to follow the conversation given the state of the world today. So my authors reflect people who I admire as thinkers, people who I admire as writers, and people who I think would be able to carry on a really compelling and important conversation. So first person is Mohsin Hamid, one of my favorite authors. I think he's very witty but also very sensitive, and I think that makes for someone who is good in conversation. Second is Roxane Gay. If you follow Roxane Gay on any sort of social media outlet, you know that she is extremely in line with contemporary thinking, follows the news and follows contemporary world events, and kind of is just really thoughtful and open about discussing various things, whether it's in the literature world or in general. So I think she would be really interesting to have as a dinner companion, and she's very into cooking, so I would almost hope that she would cook the meal as well. Next is Emma Donoghue. Emma Donoghue is one of my favorite authors. She is writes historical fiction and does a lot of research, so I think she'd have a lot of interesting context to give to a conversation. Because of the amount of research she's done for her previous novels, she could definitely relate them to contemporary issues going on today. The next person I put is Patti Smith. Patti Smith is one of my idols. I want to be her when I grow up, and I think that she is a very down-to-earth person. She seems so easy to talk to, and she also has a lot of knowledge about art and philosophy, and I think that she would just bring another level to the conversation. Along those lines, I would invite Rebecca Solnit, who is just a thinker that I greatly admire as well. I think she has a wide breadth in the world. She writes about a lot of contemporary issues, and she just has, again, a really strong aptitude for research and following her heart and following her interests. And so I think that always makes someone really interesting in conversation. And to round out my table, I would have Marlon James, because he is one of my favorite authors as well. He is very well read. He is very funny, and he's quite witty, and he's also, I feel like, very down to earth. So I feel like this combination of people would just create a really interesting and fascinating evening of conversation and hopefully really good food. Okay, so the next question is about which characters from novels I would invite to a dinner. So I know a lot of people, when they do this answer, pick very well-known characters, or from the ones that I have watched, they picked very well-known characters, and I haven't done that. But I have chosen characters that I really loved when I was reading about them, that really I felt emotionally connected to. So I know this is a very personalized answer, but all of these novels that are listed here are novels that I have loved. And so I can stand behind the characters that I'm saying. And I did the same thing with these characters. I tried to not make them too disparate, so making them so far apart from each other, except for one, I think, who's kind of far apart from the rest in terms of time period. The rest of them are all relatively close, like within the 20th century. So I think that they would still be able to relate to each other on some level. So the first character I picked is Moray Gunn from The Diviners by Margaret Laurence. This is my favorite novel of all time. She is my favorite character of all time. She was born in the 1930s, came of age during World War II era in small town Manitoba, Canada. She is a writer. She is a mother. She is someone who brings people together and creates this kind of collective gathering of people who can share stories and feel safe in her company, and she likes to bring that energy. So I think she would be really wonderful to have around a dinner party table. The next character I chose was Yale Tishman from The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. Yale was my favorite character in that novel. I loved him to bits. He just was an art dealer. He has a lot of, he's also a very kind of self-deprecating person. He's not very, he's not arrogant. He's not over the top. He just wants to live a simple life. He's kind of the everyman character, but also a gay man living through the AIDS crisis. So obviously there's a lot of trauma happening around him, and the way he deals with that trauma and the way he still tries to find goodness in life was just so admirable to me. And so I think having him around a table because of his profession and his just overall way of being in the world would be a really wonderful experience. And the next one is my kind of wild card at the table, and that's Annie Yanwu from Wild Seed by Octavia E Butler. So Annie Yanwu is from Africa, and she is a supernatural figure in a lot of ways because she is a shapeshifter. She is someone who can alter her body and live eternally, essentially. She's a healer. She is a formidable, powerful, of the earth character, and I think if you could pluck her out of Wild Seed and the circumstances of that novel and place her in a place of safety, in a place of just being able to live her life, she would just be this, immovable and, fantastical character that would be fascinating to talk to. Next, I picked Attila from Happiness by Anam and Forna. And this novel was, I really liked both characters, both the female lead and the male lead in this story. But Attila is from Ghana. He has this incredible history behind him, this amazing ability to kind of be nurturing and caring. And what I loved about that from a male character was that sense that you just don't usually get that from a male character in novels. They're usually more the kind of stoic and strong, and he was stoic and strong, but he was also very nurturing and caring for the people around him, and I really admired that about him. And he's also a highly intelligent person. I can't remember exactly what he did, but he did work with diplomats and things like that in politics, I believe. So I just think he'd be really interesting to talk to. And this Happiness takes place, I believe, in the 2000s, so it's a more contemporary character. Harrison William Shepard from the Lacuna by Barbara Kingsolver would be the next person at the table. So Harrison William Shepard would have been more contemporary to a little bit older than Morag Gunn. I believe he was coming of age in the 1950s. He is also a gay man living in the South and living in the closet, essentially, not being openly gay because of where he lives and how his life progresses. But his way of looking at the world, his ability to make connections with the characters in the book, such as a fictionalized Frida Kahlo, he was just a fascinating character who had a lot of complexity and a lot of layers, and I think that always makes for an interesting conversation with someone. And finally, my final person at the table would be Maya Haq, and she was from the Bangladesh series by Tamima Anam, and so I've only read the first two, The Golden Age and The Good Muslim, but as a character, I just respect her so much. She has so much conviction. She has so much authenticity within herself for trying to live the life that she believes she needs to under extremely difficult circumstances. So I feel like in that way she'd relate a lot to Yale, trying to just make the most of her situation, but also stay true to herself and not compromise when there's just so much turmoil and so much danger around her. And so she's just super interesting. And this is her time period is around the separation of in India. So, she's kind of contemporary with Morag as well, I believe, maybe a little bit younger. Okay. So the next question is, have you ever read a biography about a historical figure that you wanted to have dinner with after reading that book? And the answer is yes. And the person I would choose is painter Joan Mitchell. I read Joan Mitchell, Lady Painter Alive by Patricia Albers many years ago now, and that book made me absolutely fall in love with Joan Mitchell as a painter, as an artist, as a woman, existing in a time when women who were artists were not taken seriously. She lived on an uncompromising life, on her own terms. She just had this life it's kind of magical to me. It's kind of idyllic in a lot of ways. And so if I could pick an artist to talk to who's no longer with us, she would definitely be at the top of my list. And I would love to have a meal with her, although I don't think she'd eat very much. She'd probably just smoke a lot of cigarettes, but that's okay. I would forgive her for that. we would probably just eat outside. And then the last question I'm going to answer from this tag is, what is the favorite meal scene in a book or adaptation? And the one that stuck out to me, I actually found this kind of hard to think of without going through all the books and trying to remember the plots really specifically. But the one that came to mind for me was the Christmas breakfast scene in Little Women. I love the description of the table. And in the film adaptations, that's always a really important scene where the table looks so beautiful and so scrumptious, and there's the oranges, and there's like just that abundance of a Christmas morning breakfast. And then all of the girls pack it all up to take it to a family in need. And I just think that the deprivation of that moment, but with the abundance contrast, was just really, really beautiful and really, really compelling. And I think, you know, special homemade breakfasts are always one of my favorite types of meals. So that is my answers to the literary dinner party tag. I hope that you enjoyed those answers, and you can let me know if you have done this tag and who you would like to have a dinner party with. I'm so curious to hear your answers. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another video.